Dr. Martin here with a message for World Mental Health Day. I want to remind you that the adultification, dehumanization, and oppression of the Black community contributes to every single one of our mental or physical health issues in some way, shape, or form. The institutional, cultural, interpersonal, and injected oppression against the Black community is violence and should be seen as such. There's a wealth of research that talks about the fact that providing information about our culture, providing education that centers us in our narrative are a protective factor against mental and physical health issues, and yet these are things that are being taken away from us. I am a licensed clinical psychologist, scientist, and professor, and I want you to know that as a community, Black people, we deserve therapy. It's not in our head. You deserve therapy because this country is steeped in our blood, and yet the impact of that has yet to be addressed or acknowledged. You deserve therapy because you deserve an additional person on your team to help you combat, because once again, this is war being waged against us, to combat the destruction of our minds, our spirits, and our bodies daily. I also want you to know that although we deserve therapy, it is owed to us. Unfortunately, it's a privilege for many, and therapy is not going to solve every single aspect of what you're dealing with. Therapy can't be the sole solution to help you with the full weight and impact of racism or food scarcity or oppression or unlivable wages or lack of gender affirming care that you're dealing with. So my message is going to be different than the ones you've heard today. My message is going to be discussing how ways that the Black community, we can focus on applying liberation psychology to promote social change and mental wealth and work towards emancipating you from the pain that this community has been placing on you. So one, I like to talk about focusing on collective healing and building the community that you deserve. It's not only about therapy. Community can help you with so many mental health difficulties. So some amazing organizations that do this are Black Girls Smile, Black Men Heal, A Safe Haven for Black Men, Sister Circle, and Alchemy Health. They all have a community building aspect in addition to virtual discussions, mental health education for credentialed individuals, and other resources. Additionally, you need to stay educated and steeped in resources that center you and your experience, the Black experience, because it's different. Organizations that do this, in addition to the ones that I mentioned, are Beam, Boris L. Henson Foundation, Pete and Thomas Foundation, Loveland Foundation. These organizations also make it a point to look at it from different aspects. Mental Wealth Alliance, to look at it from different aspects, to include the fact of trying to find other resources to help you, to provide low to no cost therapy. Next, add intersection to your approaches, Black people. Being pro-Black does not mean only supporting Blackness that mirrors your own. One of the reasons why we are just suffering as a society is because we're not thinking about mental health and well-being as a whole and protecting everyone, he, she, and they. We also need to center the humanity of our children and combat the dehumanization and adultification of our children. But we can't do that if we don't see that in ourselves. We can't recognize the humanity in our children when we deprive ourselves of our own human qualities, emotional expression, treating ourselves twice as difficult. So this mindset of the world is tough, that I need to be tougher, needs to be combated. The world is tough, so we need to be a safe space to land, because if there's one thing that we can all agree on, it's that the community does not treat Black people the way we deserve to be treated. So allow children to express their feelings and express your own. Allow them to share their creativity. Don't make them feel as though they have to grow up and be adults as soon as they come out the womb. Being tougher on the children that are in our community deprives them of their freedoms, but it also is in direct conflict with the equity and justice that we fight for with our community every single day. And make sure that our youth feel seen. They very much are the future. That is not like hyperbole. Their future is in their hands, so we have to provide them with a hand to lift them up. I will also state that when it comes to the Black community, liberation has to be made through policy reform and establishment of new policies. Push for policies that combat systemic racism and promote social and economic equity, because once again, it's not only about therapy. A really good act for this is the Federal Reserve Racial and Economic Equity Act. This legislation would require the Federal Reserve to use its existing authorities to close racial employment and wage gaps, and also require them to report on how those wage gaps change over time. Advocate for policies that address the social determinants of health and mental health, such as affordable housing and access to quality education and employment opportunities. For example, I reside in Nashville, Tennessee, and for anyone else in Tennessee, are you aware that House Speaker Cameron Sexton expressed the fact that he wanted to reject the $1.8 billion that is supposed to be given for federal education, citing that there's restrictions placed on this money and how the money can be used, and somehow Tennessee is going to be able to cover the brunt of that. This money is essential to ensure that there's educational equity and opportunity for all American students. And when you think about it, who do you feel is going to suffer the most from us not taking $1.8 billion in funds? Is it going to be people that look like Sexton or people who look like me? Also, I want you to think of new initiatives, such as, can we establish a statewide student mental health task force? Can we come up with youth advisories, Black youth advisories? Also advocate for policy reform. Some things that we really need to be looking at are things that will expand access to Medicaid covered school-based mental health services, because we know within the Black community, the school to prison pipeline is rampant. And instead of providing more police officers and service officers, we need to be providing more mental health clinicians. Additionally, an act that is also looking towards this is the Improving Mental Health and Wellness in Schools Act, which would add mental health as a category for inclusion in local school wellness policies and allow licensed mental health professionals to collaborate on the development of local school wellness policy and mental health goals. On World Mental Health Day, I don't want you to only think about therapy. Now, I, of course, am a licensed clinical psychologist, so I'm thinking about therapy, but I want you to think, if you are a liberation-oriented professional, if you're a liberation-oriented individual, we need to look past the therapy aspect of it. World Mental Health Day, mental health is not only about therapy. Therapy was never meant to be enough at all. And to think that the society that won't acknowledge the harm that was caused against us will somehow provide us with the tools without us fighting for them. Provide us with the tools to help bring ourselves up to the full prosperity that we deserve is a fallacy. It is an act of violence against us every single day when our children don't see themselves in their narratives. When they see stereotypes in television, then they don't feel as though they can be anything that they can't see, and all they see are negative aspects of it. When we can use buzzwords such as critical race theory, when not even acknowledging the fact that all we're doing is trying to educate you, our children, on their history, the same way that you make it a point to ensure that European American children are educated on theirs. When we think about Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day, I want you to think outside of therapy. Think about these tools, cultivate community, use the resources we have, and donate money, because every single organization I mentioned needs more money to provide the care that we need. It's not just about therapy. Every message I've seen today has been World Mental Health Day, and this is what I think with therapy. There's not a level of therapy in this world that will help me to outrun racism, outrun the lack of education reform. That's what we need to fight for. And remember that being pro-Black is not only about advocating for Blackness that mirrors your own.